Time now for the markets with Leighton, and Leighton, cotton futures continue to roll on higher.
They do, artists, continuing higher. DTN reports cotton is even maintaining these prices as we produce our show Thursday morning. Also ahead this week, a tighter corn supply is expected by analysts. Mississippi catfish sales were up in 2010, and the January 1 cattle inventory report is a record of sorts. Bloomberg reports cotton is having its best start to a new year since at least 1960. A much-watched index passed the $2 a pound mark for the first time this week, as futures also set a record high again. The Cotlook A index, which has been compiled by the information service Cotlook since 1966, from cotton market quotations crossed 200 cents a pound for the first time. The International Cotton Advisory Committee attributes the rally in cotton that continues to limited supply, robust demand, and a depreciation of the U.S. dollar. Turning to grains and oilseeds now, it was the wheat complex, not corn or soybeans, that was sharply higher as of the Wednesday close of the markets. Although enthusiasm in corn was somewhat muted at midweek, analysts seem to think a real demand will be developing for old crop corn. Tom Fitzenmeyer of Summit Commodities is one of the analysts with that opinion.
I think you need to clean up old crop sales or get yourself up to that 80%. Again, I don't see nothing wrong with holding a few into the summer, because if we tighten this thing up like I think we could, you're going to see the bases continue to tighten, and there's going to be a real demand for old crop corn through the summer. So holding some into the summer, I have no problem with. As far as new crop sales go, certainly if you get new crop December corn up in that $6 range, I think you'd have to start making a few sales. Like I told some clients this week, you'd feel really disgusted with yourself if this was the top and it fell apart here and you passed up selling some $6 corn. So I think you just have to do it.
Agriculture runs on diesel to a large extent, and the cost of that fuel continues to edge higher. Diesel prices have gained 27 cents in just the past 9 weeks, according to the Energy Information Association. The national average price for diesel now is $3.43 per gallon. And we have an economic-related trivia quiz for you to start the month of February. How much of our state's workforce is employed in occupations related to ag, forestry, or natural resources? 17%, 25%, 30%, or 42%? That answer will be coming up shortly. Last year was a good one in terms of sales of Mississippi catfish. In a February 1st report, the Ag Statistics Service says that fish farmers in the Magnolia State had sales of $218 million during 2010. Now that is an increase of 11% from the year before. The average price received by farmers for food-size fish was 77 cents per pound. New government numbers that are out indicate that the January 1 U.S. cattle inventory is the lowest in 53 years. Extension economist John Michael Riley stopped by Thursday morning to discuss the beef sector of the markets. John Michael, let's start with a snapshot, if you will, of this cattle inventory report.
Right. About what we expected, shrinking of the cow herd. Actually, the smallest cow herd since 1958, going back that far. All cattle and calves were down 1.5%, which is right in line with what the pre-report expected. The biggest thing that we saw here is in terms of down the road, thinking about long-term picture, beef heifers kept back for replacement were down just over 5%. The expectation there was about 2%, so a larger reduction in the heifer retention. We saw that throughout the year with heifers placed on feed. Those numbers were up, and so I think from a long-term standpoint, this doesn't look like a trend that's going to change anytime soon.
All right, what about calves? I don't know if you've mentioned calves yet.
No, calves were actually on par with last year, right at 100% in terms of year-over-year change. Down in the state of Mississippi, down about 5% the calf crop was. So I think, especially in the southeast, a reduction across most states in the southeast in overall number of cows and total calf crop.
All right, let's talk about what these inventory numbers may have to do with prices as we continue on this into the spring.
Well, it's an indicator of further shrinking of supply. which is positive for prices. But as we've seen just over the past couple of days, you know, a lot of our industry hinges on demand. There's still uncertainty in terms of unemployment and consumer spending, consumer sentiment. So that's pushed prices a little lower the past couple of days. I think that's going to continue to be the struggle between with prices. Is, you know, we do have a shrinking herd. We do have less supply out there, but how much demand is going to be there? Is the recovery that we're continuing to kind of see, is it going to filter down into more consumers out there buying beef?
Mm-hmm. And the winter tie, we're of course in winter, but the type of weather that we're having in Mississippi and the Southeast this year in particular, is that likely to have any impact on the beef sector?
Well, I think it's going to put a constraint on our producers, but who are already low in hay supplies. If you look at the bigger impact nationally, you know, a lot of movement in terms of trade at the Fed cattle supply is at a standstill right now. So yeah, it's going to have issues.
And let's take a look at the answer to the trivia quiz now to close out the market segment on Farm Week. The first choice is the correct one this week. 17% of the state's workforce is employed in occupations related to ag, forestry, or natural resources.